Have you ever given someone everything, only to feel like you gave them nothing at all? Let that question sit for a moment. Because if you're watching this video, something inside you already knows the answer. Maybe you've been the person who always texts first. Maybe you've bent yourself into shapes just to keep the peace. Maybe you've told yourself that if you just loved a little harder, stayed a little longer, or asked for a little less, they would finally see you. They would finally stay. But they didn't. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. See, there's a particular kind of pain that doesn't make sense to anyone who hasn't lived it. It's not like a normal breakup where there's a fight or a clear ending or a reason you can point to and say that's why it ended. No, this is different. This is the pain of being slowly left while someone is still standing right in front of you. This is the confusion of wondering why you were never enough when you gave them your entire heart. This is the silent torture of replaying every text, every conversation, every moment, trying to find the exact second where it went wrong. And the worst part? They just moved on like you were never even there. Now I need you to hear something very important, and I need you to really let it sink in. If you've experienced this, if you've been with someone who pulled away the closer you got, who made you feel like your needs were too much, who made you feel like loving them was a burden, you are not broken. You are not flawed. You are not too much. You are simply someone who loved with courage, and you crossed paths with someone who was never taught how to love with the same kind of bravery. That's not your fault. In this video, I'm going to break down 4 specific things that an avoidant person does when they are in the process of discarding you. But more than just identifying those behaviors, we're going to look at the psychology behind them. We're going to understand why they do what they do, and most importantly, we're going to reclaim your power. Because right now, you might feel small. You might feel like you lost something precious, but I'm going to show you that you didn't lose anything. You simply stopped holding on to something that was never actually holding you back. So here's what's going to happen. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly where you stand. You're going to know that the silence, the mixed signals, the hot and cold treatment, none of it was about your worth. It was about their inability to meet you where you were. And once you truly understand that, something powerful shifts inside you. The confusion clears, the self-doubt fades, and you start to see yourself the way you were always meant to be seen. So if you've been carrying around the weight of wondering what you did wrong, if you've been waking up every morning searching for answers, if you've been telling yourself that maybe next time you'll just be less, I need you to watch the rest of this video with an open mind and an open heart. Because what I'm about to share with you might change the way you see everything. Not just this relationship, but every relationship you have from this moment forward. You deserve clarity, you deserve truth, and you deserve someone who doesn't make you question your own value. That's exactly what you're going to get. So stay with me until the end, because this is the video that will set you free. Now let me ask you something. What if I told you that everything you thought was wrong with you was never really about you at all? What if the cold silences, the emotional distance, the way they made you feel like you were drowning while they stood on the shore, what if all of that had absolutely nothing to do with your worth as a person? What if it had everything to do with the invisible wounds they were carrying that they never showed you? Because that's the truth, and once you really understand it, everything changes. Let's talk about what actually happens inside the mind of someone with an avoidant attachment style. See, these aren't bad people. They aren't monsters. They're wounded people who learned very early in life that vulnerability equals danger. They learned that needing someone means getting hurt. They learned that the moment you let someone all the way in, you give them the power to destroy you. And so they built walls, thick, invisible walls. Not because they don't want love, but because some part of them is still that scared child who learned that love was something that could be taken away without warning. Now here's where it gets really important. When you came into their life and started loving them the way a normal, healthy person loves, with openness, with trust, with emotional presence, it terrified them. Not because you were doing anything wrong, but because every time you reached for them, every time you asked for closeness, every time you wanted to go deeper, their brain sent out an alarm. It said, danger, danger, you're getting too close, pull back, protect yourself. And so they did. This is what we call the activate and deactivate cycle. And it's absolutely destroying people who are trying to love them. Here's how it works. In the beginning, everything feels amazing. The avoidant person is present, they're engaged, they're giving you everything you needed. But the moment the relationship starts to get real, the moment you start asking for consistency, for emotional availability, for real commitment, their defense mechanisms kick in. They start to feel suffocated. They start to feel like they're losing themselves. And instead of talking to you about it, instead of saying, hey, I'm feeling scared, they go silent. They pull away. They start to deactivate. And you feel it. You feel the energy shift. You start to wonder what you did. You start to be careful. You start to shrink yourself so you don't push them further away. And they notice. They see you trying so hard to be less. And somewhere deep down, it confirms their belief that depending on someone is dangerous. Because look, you're changing yourself for them, right? You're adapting, you're adjusting, you're doing everything to keep the peace. But here's what you need to understand. That whole time, they were never running from you. They were running from themselves. They were running from the terror of facing their own neediness. They were running from the shame of admitting that they wanted love, but didn't know how to accept it. And because they couldn't face those feelings, they made you feel like the problem. They made you question your own needs. They made you wonder if asking for emotional closeness was somehow too much to ask. But it wasn't. It never was. This is the moment where you need to shift everything. Because right now, you're sitting there thinking about everything you could have done differently. You're replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you were too needy, too emotional, too demanding. And I'm telling you, that is the biggest trap you can fall into. They didn't pull away because you were too much. They pulled away because your love was a mirror showing them everything they were afraid to face in themselves. And that is not your burden to carry. Understanding this doesn't mean you have to forgive them. It doesn't mean you have to go back. It simply means you can finally stop blaming yourself. You can finally put down the weight of wondering what you did wrong, because you didn't do anything wrong. You just loved someone who was fighting a battle you couldn't see, and they used you as the enemy when the real enemy was always inside them. Remember that. Hold on to that. And as we go deeper into this video, I need you to keep that understanding with you. Because the 4 behaviors we're about to discuss, they're going to make so much more sense now. You're going to see them for what they really are. And more importantly, you're going to see yourself for who you really are. Stay with me. Because what comes next is going to change everything. Let's get into it. The 4 things an avoidant does when they're discarding you. And I need you to pay attention here. Because once you see these clearly, you will never unsee them. And that is exactly what you need. Here's the first one. They go silent, but they never actually leave. You know what I'm talking about. The texts become shorter. The responses take longer. The energy that used to be there starts to fade, but they don't break up with you. They don't have a conversation. They just drift. And you're left there wondering what's happening, sending messages into what feels like a void, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. But here's what's really going on. They are keeping you close enough to maintain their ego, close enough to come back when they feel lonely, close enough to know that you're still there waiting for them. But they are never actually present. They are giving you just enough contact to keep you hoping, to keep you waiting, to keep you wondering if maybe tomorrow will be different. And it never is. This is what they call breadcrumbs, little tiny pieces of attention that feel like nothing but somehow feel like everything when you're desperate for any sign that they still care. They will text you once a week, maybe 2. Nothing substantial, nothing that requires any real emotional investment, just enough to keep you hanging on. And you have to understand why they do this. It's not because they love you, it's because they are cowards. They don't have the courage to either commit fully or let you go completely. So they do neither. They keep you in this limbo because it's comfortable for them. It serves their needs, but it absolutely destroys yours. So when you see this pattern, know this. A person who truly values you does not make you guess where you stand. A person who truly wants to be with you does not treat your heart like something they can pick up and put down whenever it suits them. You are not a backup plan. You are not a safety net. And anyone who makes you feel like you're waiting for scraps from their table is showing you exactly who they are. Now, the second thing they do, they pull away the moment you need them most. Think about it. When you're going through something hard, when you need emotional support, when you reach out because you genuinely need them, that's when they disappear. That's when they go cold. That's when they suddenly become too busy, too overwhelmed, too whatever to be there for you. And you start to wonder what's wrong with you. You start to think maybe your needs are too big. Maybe you're asking for too much. Maybe you should just learn to handle things alone. Stop. Right there. That is the trap. Listen to me carefully. When someone pulls away from you during your hardest moments, it is not because your needs are too much. It is because your vulnerability triggers something terrifying inside them. The moment you show them that you need something, their brain interprets that as a demand, as pressure, as something that requires them to show up in a way they don't know how to. And instead of facing that fear, instead of sitting with the discomfort of being needed, they run. They run into silence. They run into distraction. They run into whatever allows them to pretend that everything is fine and you're the one with the problem. But needing someone is not a weakness. Needing emotional support is not being too much. You are a human being who deserves to be held during hard times. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch when you need them. You deserve someone who sees your vulnerability as an invitation to come closer instead of a reason to run away. Anyone who makes you feel like your emotional needs are a burden has already shown you that they cannot give you what you deserve. Now, the third thing, they talk about the future, but never take a single step toward it. They tell you they want to move in together. They tell you they see a life with you. They talk about trips, plans, commitments, and for a moment you feel seen. You feel hopeful. You start to believe that maybe this time it's real, but nothing changes. No plans are made. No commitments are followed through. The future they painted for you exists only in conversation, never in action. Here's the truth. When someone consistently talks about a future with you but never acts on it, they are manipulating you. They are using words to keep you attached without ever having to deliver on anything. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that telling you what you want to hear will keep you right where they want you. Patient, hopeful, waiting, and you deserve more than empty promises. You deserve someone whose actions match their words. Someone who, when they say they want a future with you, actually starts building that future. Not next year, not someday, now. Words without action are just noise, and if someone keeps giving you noise while you keep waiting for something real, you have to ask yourself how much longer you're willing to stay in a place where your dreams are talked about but never pursued. Because that's not love, that's a placeholder. And you are worth so much more than being someone's option while they figure out what they actually want. Now, the fourth thing, and this is the one that hurts the most, they discard you suddenly, without warning, without explanation, without even a conversation. One day they're there, the next day it's like they never existed. No breakup talk, no real ending, just gone, erased. Like you were never part of their life at all. And this is where people really break. Not because the relationship ended, but because they never got to understand why. They never got to ask questions. They never got closure. They were just suddenly on the outside of something they thought was real. But here's what you need to understand about this one. A person who cannot have hard conversations cannot have real relationships, period. They know that if they actually sit down with you and explain what's happening, they would have to face their own cowardice. They would have to admit that they were never really all in, and that would require them to look at themselves honestly, and they can't do that. So instead, they just disappear. They make you the villain of a story you didn't even know you were in. You didn't lose someone valuable. You lost someone who was never actually available. And the cold way they left you, that tells you everything you need to know about who they really are as a person. But you still have more to hear. So keep watching, because this next part might be the most important thing you take away from this entire video. Now let me say something directly to you, and I need you to hear it with your whole heart. If you recognized yourself in anything we talked about today, if you saw your own story playing out in those 4 behaviors, I want you to understand something with absolute clarity. You were never being loved the way you deserved. You were being kept. There is a massive difference between those 2 things. When someone loves you the right way, you never have to decode their silence. You never have to wonder if you matter. You never have to shrink yourself to make room for them in your life. But when someone is simply keeping you, they hold on to you just enough to serve their own needs, and they let go the moment you start demanding what you actually deserve. And that is exactly what was happening to you. But here's where we go from here, because this video was never just about understanding avoidant behavior. It was never just about identifying the 4 things they do when they're discarding you. No. This video was about something much bigger. It was about helping you see that you have been carrying shame that was never yours to carry. You have been blaming yourself for something that was never your fault. And you have been staying attached to someone who could never give you what you needed, because some part of you believed that maybe if you just tried a little harder, you could finally be enough to make them stay. But listen to me now. You could never have been enough for someone who is running from themselves. Your love was never the problem. Your heart was never too much. Your ability to feel deeply and want real connection was never a weakness. It was always your greatest strength. And every person who made you feel otherwise was simply too wounded to recognize what they had standing right in front of them. So what do you do now? You let them go. Not because you didn't love them, not because you don't still care, but because you finally understand that holding on to someone who cannot hold on to you is keeping yourself trapped in a cycle that will never let you grow into who you're meant to become. You are allowed to love someone and still choose yourself. Those two things can exist at the same time. You are allowed to grieve what you thought it was while still walking away from what it actually was. And I need you to understand something else. Right now, in this very moment, you have survived something that broke many people. You went through confusion, rejection, emotional starvation, and maybe even a devastating discard. And you are still here. You are still breathing. You are still capable of love. That means you are stronger than you feel. That means you have a resilience inside you that you haven't even begun to discover yet. This pain you feel right now, it is not the end of your story. It is the beginning. Because the moment you stop holding on to someone who could never fully hold on to you, you create space for someone who will, someone whose actions will always match their words, someone who will not make you guess, someone who will stay when things get hard instead of running away. Someone who will see all of you, the messy parts, the emotional parts, the parts that need reassurance, and choose you anyway. That person exists, and they are waiting for you to become free enough to receive them. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Right now, in this moment, make a decision. Decide that you are done shrinking. Decide that you are done tolerating half of what you deserve. Decide that you will never again allow someone to make you feel like your needs are too much or your heart is too big. You are not too much. You never were. And anyone who made you feel that way is not someone you lost. They are someone you escaped. Go forward from here with your head high. Know that your worth is not determined by how someone else treated you. Know that your value was always intact, even when you couldn't see it yourself. And know that the best parts of your life are still ahead of you, waiting for you to walk through the door you've been too scared to open. You are going to be okay. You are going to be more than okay. You are going to be extraordinary. Now go out there and become the person you were always meant to be. You owe it to yourself. You have always owed it to yourself, and you are the only one who can give it to yourself.